tip-off as we count down on the Toronto Raptors, again, trying to win their first ever NBA championship against the dynasty that is the Golden State Warriors. You know we had to have Harrison back. Harrison Sanford, who's the co-host with Danny Green of In the Green Room with Danny Green, the podcast. Thanks for coming back again.
Not a problem.
You know, if this just stretches out, we're just every day we'll have a nice chat, and it's kind of fun.
It is kind of fun. Hopefully it doesn't go too far, right?
Yeah,
There's only 7 games.
I know. What's your feeling for this morning?
I feel like the Raptors feel I know that the Raptors feel confident going into tonight. I think they have a great chance of winning. The only thing that might go in their way is if the other players on the Warriors play well. And Alfonso McKinney, a Quinn Cook, obviously Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, they're great players. But at home, those role players can potentially get going, and that will be a factor tonight.
Okay, let's talk about all of that in more detail. Have you been hearing anything from your pal Danny or anybody else in terms of what they have been feeling, how they're looking, how things have been going with their practice yesterday, what the discussions they've had, what's happening?
I think they're very confident in what they've been doing and what they've done. If you look at how they lost that last game, the Warriors scored 23 pointers. And the Raptors only lost by 1 point. That's something that's so irregular.
And the Raptors had only 8 3-pointers on the game, yes.
Yeah, so the Raptors have to feel confident going into this matchup today. The strategy doesn't really change. They just have to go out there and perform. And I spoke to a couple guys on the team. Sometimes playing on the road empowers them a bit more because they feel like their backs are against the wall. It's us against the world. And that could be a factor tonight as they go into Game 6.
Okay. Was there any discussion? Were they miffed at all about Nick Nurse calling that timeout when he did?
No. Again, it's one of those things where if they win, nobody thinks about it. But because they lost, it's a talking point. I think they're all fine with it. You have to use those timeouts. And let's face it, we saw how many players got injured in the last game in this series. Take some rest while you can.
Okay, I will talk about one of those players who did get injured in just a second, but also on the Raptors. We learned from the NBA on Tuesday, day after, too late, that Marc Gasol was in fact fouled with 49 seconds to go. Now, who knows what could have happened in the rest of the game, but it might have been a factor. He'd gone to the free throw line for 2. What do the players do with that? Does that fire them up at all, or can they use it?
As fans, maybe as journalists who want to see the series come to an end, it would fire us up. I think the guys know that there's so many different plays and so many calls that could be made in the last portion of the game that you just kind of chalk it up to that's what happens in any game. It's just that it's heightened because it's the playoffs, it's heightened because it's the NBA Finals. But there's always fouls that get called and don't get called. They wash over it, and that's the key to this team. They don't let those type of things hang on them and carry it into the next game.
They keep that business-like approach. They're on a business trip, as they said so many times. On the other side of things, again, looking to the Warriors, Kevin Durant going out. We were showing earlier this morning, we'll bring it up again. He put himself up on social media, his own Instagram post, post-surgery for his Achilles repair, as we thought it was pretty serious. There it is there. But the fact that he's not there, how does the team use that?
The Warriors, they're going to use it as motivation.
Yes.
And that's something that you have to be prepared for if you're the Raptors. It's the last game in Oracle Arena ever, regardless of what happens here, because they're moving into a new arena in San Francisco. So that is going to be a factor. They're going to be motivated by a new arena, motivated by the absence of Kevin Durant. But at the same time, let's face it, the Warriors have to also feel without Kevin Durant, they're not the better team. And I think the Raptors feel 100% confident in that fact, that without Kevin Durant, they're just simply better than the Warriors. And the Warriors will have to have a superhuman performance, not just in Game 6, but if they happen to win that one, they still have to have an amazing performance in Game 7. The Raptors are just the better team.
Oh, man, let's not even contemplate that. I'll have to have you back tomorrow if that's the case, and we'll talk about Game 7 mentality. But lay it out for us as you see it, Harrison. What are the keys to a Raptors victory tonight?
Speaking to a couple guys on the team, communication defensively, there were way too many open shots for Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, especially during the back end of that game. And then also as well, Pascal Siakam had a great Game 1. I believe it was 32 points. He really didn't play well in the last couple games. He hasn't hit a three-pointer, I think, since the first game of the series, and we're about to approach Game 6. He's a young player, but hopefully he gets his stride back. And if he hits a couple of shots, they communicate on defense, and they have poise down the end. Kyle Lowry plays well on the road. everybody should be prepared to celebrate tonight.
Okay. I'm going to ask his brother about that because his brother's coming on our show a little bit later on. Just before I let you go, I'm also talking next hour to one high school coach of your pal, Danny Green, Mr. Kloos.
Yes, indeed.
Tell me a little bit about him just to set that up for next hour.
Well, Tim Kloos should be credited for the professionalism that Danny has brought to the franchise, to his entire career. Danny wasn't a hard worker until he ran into Tim Kloos. Tim Kloos was known not just in his high school, but in Long Island, in New York, as a drill sergeant, in a good way. He gave Danny a sense of professionalism that Danny has carried on to this moment now. Danny is very structured and makes sure he's at practice at time, early, and things of that nature. It's all Tim Kloos. He's laid the foundation for what Danny has become, and many, not just Danny, but a number of basketball players that are reached professional ranks, coaching ranks over the past 20 years or so.
Fantastic. That's why we're speaking to him in the next hour. But I enjoyed, as always, this hour's chat. Thanks, Harrison, for coming in this morning. Harrison Sanford, the co-host of the podcast, in the green room with Danny Green ahead of Game 6 tonight.